Hi everybody, my name is Tash. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about baby sleep. So some secrets and some science behind sleep in that first year. So as I said, my name is Tash. I'm the founder of Sound Asleep Baby and I'm an occupational therapist. So I've done some further study in baby and early childhood sleep and paediatric feeding. And those two things are really inextricably linked because I look at sleep in a holistic way. So part of my practice philosophy is that I'm really passionate about empowering parents on their little one's sleep journey. I really am big on providing education. I'm not there to tell you what to do. I'm there to work with you to come up with specific strategies and plans that fit in with your parenting philosophy, but also giving you the reason why. And part of that is the science that we're going to talk about as we go on. But yeah, to give you confidence and knowledge so that you can fit your child's sleep plan into your life and feel empowered with it. Another key component of my philosophy is that parental mental health really is paramount. I am really passionate that nobody should feel guilty about wanting to improve their child and by proxy their own sleep. It's really important that, you know, the whole family gets the rest we need for the best mental health we can have. The other core component of my practice is looking at when sleep is persistently difficult or is just really difficult from the get-go, looking at why that is. So part of, and I guess that feeds back into why I look at sleep and feeding, not just sleep alone. Because I assess things holistically, and as I said, my aim is to look at what is causing problems with sleep if they are ongoing and significant, because there pretty much always is a reason why. Okay, so today's presentation, I could talk about baby sleep for hours and hours and hours, and I do, but today I've got half an hour. So we're going to look at some sleep science. We're going to cover some sleep basics, so things that you can implement straight away at home. We're just going to touch on the topic of settling, naps and cat napping, night waking, and then we're going to briefly touch on the concept of, is the problem with your little one's sleep disordered sleep, or is it a sleep disorder? And then I'm going to give you a link to a freebie, an ebook which I've created for you guys, and a contact should you wish to get in contact with me. So let's start with sleep science. So sleep is a biological imperative. It is not a luxury. So it really is one of the three pillars of health. It sits alongside physical activity and nutrition. And I guess this feeds back into my part of my practice philosophy in terms of parental mental health as well. So no one's going to feel guilty about improving physical health of them or their child, or nutrition of them or their child. So my hope is that people can drop the guilt around wanting to improve sleep, because it is a pillar of health. So lots of amazing stuff happens in our bodies when we sleep, but a semi-recent discovery is that some essential brain cleansing happens when we sleep. And with chronic sleep interruption, that's interfered with. So it's a system called the glymphatics, similar to the lymphatics, if you're familiar with that, that opens up in our brain only when we sleep. So it clears the brain of toxins and waste products and protein buildup and stuff like that. I won't go too much further into it, but if you would like to find out more about that, there's a great little TED Talk reference there that you can do so. So let's look at kind of the neurotransmitters and hormones which are important in sleep. So melatonin, you may have heard of before, it's our sleep hormone. Its it follows a diurnal rhythm, which means it's just the release is just once a day. It's not happening at points throughout the day during naps, just for that to facilitate sleep onset in the early evening. Serotonin is our wakeful hormone, and that's the hormone that when we're asleep, when that light starts to peeking through the windows and hit the back of our eye, our retina, through our closed eyes, that cascade of events will set off to produce serotonin to wake us up. Cortisol and adrenaline, you may be familiar with. They're the things that are responsible or that you'll see in an overtired child. So cortisol, again, follows kind of a natural rhythm of peaks and troughs throughout the day. What happens is when our little ones are awake for longer than developmentally normal, instead of that cortisol level resetting, what it does is keeps on rising. And then once that gets to a certain concentration, then we release adrenaline. And then that adrenaline is, I mean, I'm sure everyone's familiar with adrenaline, like that kind of hyped up feeling. So that's why you might notice a second wind with your child that has been awake. You think, oh my gosh, they're only meant to be awake for an hour and a half and they've been awake for 3, but they don't seem tired at all. In fact, they seem hyper, and that's what it is. They are tired, but they're wired. Hormonally, it's really difficult for them to sleep. So that's you're wired and tired, or you're overtired. So our circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm is our 24-hour internal body clock. So really importantly, there is no functioning circadian rhythm in the first 9 to 12 weeks of life, which is why if you try and follow a routine based on the time on the clock, it's impossible. It's never going to happen. Your little one's body has literally no frame of reference for night, day, anything. It's not until about those 9 to 12 weeks that the circadian rhythm matures and you can start to work on a routine, which we'll discuss in a bit. So your circadian rhythm is set by food, so milk in those early days, light, so light in the natural environment and within the sleep environment, and social interaction. So the social interaction that you do with your little one during night feeds, just keep it calmer. You can still interact with them, but make it quite distinct from day playtime interaction. So the circadian rhythm takes 3 to 5 days to change. Obviously once it's established at 9 to 12 weeks. So what the significance of that is, when you're trying to implement routine or implement change, it will take a little while for that to establish. But also if you need to, deviate from your norm a day here and there, it's not going to upset everything and make, undo all your hard work. You might have a tireder baby on that particular day, but it's not going to undo where you've got to by that point. And it also works in 10 to 15 minute blocks. So that's significant in terms of, if you want to be working with routine, then, sleep within around 10 to 15 minutes at the same time. That's why it will work, because that's the circadian rhythm works in those 10 to 15 minute blocks. So we have 2 processes to do with our sleep. So the circadian rhythm, which you can see is the red line here, and then our homeostatic sleep drive, which is this drive here. So the homeostatic sleep drive is responsible for drive to sleep, or our sleep pressure, so feeling sleepy. So every minute that we're awake, adenosine is building up and up and up. And when it gets to that certain concentration, that's when we feel tired. So when we work with, predictability or routine, those 2 processes can synchronize. And what that does is create biological sleep windows. So this is for a little one on 2 or 3 naps a day. So you can see that those biological sleep windows are happening at those particular times because those processes are synced up. So what that means is your little one is feeling tired enough because that adenosine has built up, so there's enough sleep pressure, and then that cortisol is also not going to keep rising. So with irregular sleep patterns, it's really difficult for that homeostatic sleep drive and that circadian rhythm to sync up, and that can manifest as disordered arousal or difficulty sleeping. So in terms of our sleep architecture, I will cover a sleep cycle in the next slide, but just so you know the 2 components of a sleep cycle. So there's REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, and that can be thought of as restorative for the brain. That's our light, active sleep where lots of memory storage is happening. So infants have 5 times more REM sleep than adults, and that's because everything in their day is new. They're learning, they're making memories so much. So that's why they have so much more REM sleep. Non-REM sleep, so non-rapid eye movement sleep, is the deep, quiet sleep. And that is when that can be thought of as body restorative sleep. So when you get tissue growth, repair, and hormones for growth and development happen. So here we have a typical sleep cycle. So to start with, when our little ones are born, they don't have mature sleep cycles. They have just 2 phases of sleep, so quiet sleep and active sleep. So around 8 weeks, day sleep cycles will start to mature, and night sleep cycles will start to mature around 4 months, which is generally with the 4-month regression, which is actually a progression. So in early childhood, a normal sleep cycle is about 45 to 50 minutes, and adults, it's between 90 and 100 minutes. So you can see how we progress from REM through to non-REM, back to REM, and around and around. So let's look at some sleep basics. So the environment that your little one sleeps in. So light, in terms of the darkness of your little one's sleep environment, that's important for night sleep and early morning sleep. If you think back to what I mentioned about serotonin, if early morning light is creeping into your little one's bedroom, that will cause them to wake because it sets off that cascade of events to start to get serotonin released. Darkness during day sleep is important for factors of overstimulation, but not for melatonin. If you remember, I mentioned melatonin doesn't happen with naps. So if your little one is not overstimulated, you don't have to have a pitch black room. If you find your little one is overstimulated by your presence or things in their environment, then it's a good idea to darken the environment. Other components of light, so blue, white and green light all interrupt melatonin production. So if there's monitors or clocks or electronics in your little one's room which have blue, white or green in them, I would advise covering them up. You can put a little bit of blue tack or a little bit of tape over the top of them. And even though those lights might be really little, you'd be surprised how distracting they are to a little one, particularly because lots of them flash and they might not seem like much to you, but when you're in that room, it's a bit like a disco. So I would just cover them up. So temperature, that needs to be considered in terms of 3 components. So the room temperature, the clothing that you've got your little one in, and their bedding. So there's the tog of their sleeping bag and things like that. So certainly when your little one is cold, that can manifest as early morning wakening. It's the coldest between 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So if your little one is an early morning riser, it would be worth looking at the temperature there. On the flip side, if your little one is too hot, that will absolutely make falling asleep difficult. And I always think about those hot summer nights where you're lying there trying to cool down. It's really hard to get to sleep. It's no different for our little ones. Now, white noise is great for newborns, but it's also really good for older babies. It's a good sleep association, which we'll touch on next, but also it's a great blocker of environmental sound. So whether that's early morning, birds, parents moving around the house, siblings, or during the day for naps, if you've got dogs, other kids, doorbells ringing, it just kind of will make any environmental sound less sharp and less likely to wake your little one up. And yeah, as I mentioned, light in terms of overstimulation, but just be aware of any, remove mobiles from hanging over the bed, pop them over the change table, that type of thing. So sleep associations, there's no good, no bad. They either work for you or they don't. And certainly early on, pretty much all kids will need help falling asleep, and that's fine. And it's fine to continue with those as long as they are working for you. So basically, you can break sleep associations into two components, parent dependent and those independent of the parent. So even when your little one is very small and you're doing lots of the parent dependent ones like rocking or patting or sway, it's a good idea to have some which are independent of you. So that will help with a transition point if you need to teach your little one to fall asleep on the mattress. So things like white noise, like I mentioned, a wind down routine, and a little transitional object that they might form an attachment to. That shouldn't be left in the cot until 7 months, however, but it can form part of that wind down routine and a signal to your little one that it's time to sleep. So a wind down routine is a really powerful little thing that you can implement from the get-go, and it's basically a set routine, short little routine that signals to your little one that it is time to sleep. So make sure it's predictable, repeatable, all caregivers can do it. So an example would be going into your little one's room, closing the blinds, putting some white noise on, putting them in their sleeping bag, and a little mantra is really good. So just something that you repeat every time they go to sleep. So I use sleepy time, my darling mummy and daddy love you very much. We'll see you in the morning or whenever. And then I sing a song. So the same song, I just use Twinkle Little Star. It's repeatable. Everybody knows it. Anyone could do it. The sound of that mantra and that song start to signal to your little one that it's sleep time. And you will notice as this becomes recognizable to your child that they will start to show signs that they're about to fall asleep when you start doing that, because they just know that it's sleep time now. So let's touch on settling. So as I mentioned before, most babies need assistance in those early days. It doesn't mean they need assistance like forever. And actually, the assistance you provide to a newborn can become overstimulating to an older baby. So considering that, and if you are hoping to teach your child to fall asleep by themselves on the mattress, what you always want to do is continue along a continuum of soothing. So the specific strategy you use will be individualized to you, your family, your situation, your child. But basically what it is a progressive withdrawal of parental assistance. So slowly over time, doing less and less and giving that power over to your little one more as you go along. So really importantly, teaching your little one to fall asleep on the mattress does not mean you have to let them cry without you. I like to say cry it out and wait it out are not the only options. So what I mean by that is if you're not comfortable with cry it out, and most families I work with are not, that's not your only option. I very rarely do it. But the alternative is not to wait until your baby miraculously starts to sleep. Because think back to my practice philosophy, mental health, pillar of health, right? So I don't want you to wait at the detriment of those other things. So you can absolutely support your little one to fall asleep on the mattress independently. You can do it in a gentle way. And really importantly, before 6 months, your child neurologically isn't capable of calming themselves down from an upset state. They need your assistance to do that. So by that, a little one can certainly learn to fall asleep by themselves, but if they're upset, they need you to help regulate them. And that's why we use supportive, gentle strategies to help your little one fall asleep, learn to fall asleep. So everyone's favourite topic, naps and catnapping. So you can work with awake times, you can work on routine. Your baby, your life, you can do whatever you like. Really importantly, as I touched on previously, before 9 to 12 weeks, routine, as in based on the time on the clock, will be impossible. And the best thing to do is work off awake times. So I've put together an ebook which you can access via my website, which I'll put at the end of the presentation, which covers awake times and routine from birth to 1 year old. So let's have a look at some advantages of using a routine over awake times. So if you choose to use routine, it can be easier basically, because you're not kind of chopping and changing and guessing every day. It can give some predictability to your and your child's life, which helps with you know, planning your day and things like that. So it can be less stressful for you if that's the way your personality, your parenting style. There is research to show that following a routine helps with improved daytime behaviour of your little one and increases the sense of parental competence. Now, in terms of the science behind why routine is beneficial, if you remember back to the two processes involved with sleep, so your circadian rhythm and your homeostatic sleep drive, following a routine will help with those biological sleep windows. So falling asleep, staying asleep is easier, and there's less likelihood of disordered arousal. So I'm not going to go into these in detail. It's just a bit of a snapshot because I've put, as I said, put these in an ebook for you to access. But yeah, these are some routines, examples of routines for you to have a look at, but you can get the full gamut in my ebook. So catnapping, yes, it is developmentally normal. It happens developmentally normal from about 8 to 9 weeks. And if you remember back to the science, it occurs because day sleep cycles mature. So before that, your little one might seem like they're just sleep like a log forever, and then they start to wake up, and that's because they've moved from that quiet and active sleep into a mature day sleep cycle. You can start to work on them right away, and I'll give you some strategies for that coming up. Now, they are normal from 8 to 9 weeks, but before 8 to 9 weeks, if your little one is consistently catnapping, I consider that a forced wake. So something, which we'll touch on as we go along, but something is causing your little one to wake up. The other time I would consider the wake a forced wake is if the wake is, the nap, is less than a full sleep cycle. So you remember, if the sleep cycle is 45 to 50 minutes, if your little one consistently only sleeps for 20 or 30 minutes in the day, I consider that a forced wake. So how do you work on getting longer naps? Basically, it comes down to resettling. I guess lots of people fall into, or one of the difficulties is how long do you resettle for? Because you could spend hours in there. I cap it at 30 minutes. So you're going to do it for that 30 minutes and then come out of the room, and that's it, nap over. Now, the resettling and extending naps does take consistency. So it normally takes between 2 or 3 weeks to extend those naps out. And I guess that's where lots of people give up because they feel like they do it for a couple of days, it doesn't work, so it's not working. But in actual fact, if you stay consistent, it really will. So the other thing that can confuse people is they think, well, they haven't gone back to sleep, waste of time, why would I bother keeping on doing this for another week? What you're actually doing whilst you're resettling is you're keeping your little one in their sleep environment to set their circadian rhythm. So you're telling their circadian rhythm that this time of day is for sleep. It doesn't matter that they don't go back to sleep. You're not failing. What happens is with consistency, you're imprinting that on their circadian rhythm, so their body starts to recognize, cool, I need to be asleep this time of day. Now, in terms of cat napping and, you know, is it bad, is it good? Look, there's little solid research, like much to do with lots of components of baby sleep, because good quality studies are hard to do with infants, basically. But anecdotally, and you can look at the correlation, excuse me, the causative correlation, and the benefits of consolidated sleep for your baby and for parents, you know, like there seems to be positives. So, and particularly with those forced wakes, you can see that if you're not getting through that whole sleep cycle, you're not going to be getting the brain and the body restorative benefits. So, I mean, that's quite a thing you can draw out of it. And don't underestimate how the benefit, you know, well, don't underplay, I suppose, the benefits of if you feel like you would cope better with a baby that slept longer in the day, then it's totally fine to work on it. You know, it's nice to be able to have some consistency and know that your baby's going to sleep for a couple of hours when you put them down for your mental health, and so you can get stuff done around the house. So, forced wakes. So, as I touched on, that means very short naps, so naps that are less than 30 minutes. Other things are, which I come across so often, are baby waking as soon as they're put on the mattress. Babies that will only sleep in arms during the day and sometimes also at night. And so with this, it's really important to work out what is causing your little one to wake. So because we need to kind of resolve that to then produce a longer nap. And so remember the forced wakes are cat napping before 8 or 9 weeks, or any short naps, any consistent naps that are shorter than 30 minutes. So let's look at night waking. So these are general guidelines, and the big caveat is these are guidelines to follow if your little one is feeding well. If your little one is not feeding well, they are inefficient, or they have, you know, latch problems or things like that, then you've got your own guidelines. These are general guidelines when bub is putting on weight and feeding well. And likewise, if a health professional that's working specifically with you has advised you that your little one needs to be woken to be fed, then you absolutely follow that. So, but it's good to have a nice kind of general guide of what you could expect your little one, how long you could expect your little one to sleep if they meet those weight milestones that you can see here. So, sleeping through milestones. So, if your little one starts to sleep through by themselves without meeting these milestones, fine. You don't go and wake them if they're feeding well and putting on weight. But these milestones are for actively working on getting your little one to sleep. So what I mean by that is if I have a client, I will not encourage their little one to sleep through the night with no feeds unless they are 7 kilos or more, they are feeding well, so on the breast or the bottle, they are established on solids, and mum and bub are emotionally ready to not see each other for 12 hours. So remember, if your little one does it of their own accord, fine. Okay, so Let's look a little bit at when sleep is consistently hard. So what do I mean by disordered sleep? So disordered sleep is things like, you know, looking at sleep hygiene basically. So routine, the balance of day sleep, overtiredness, environmental factors, and settling strategy. So we've covered kind of most of those things, or touched on most of those things. So when you have worked on trying to improve your little one's sleep with those components, if you have consistent difficulty, my belief and what I find in my practice is that the problem with your little one's sleep is not behavioural. So those sleep hygiene things are not going to make a difference. So what then we look at is what is the underlying cause of your little one's sleep or their sleep disorder. So quantity, so hours of sleep versus quality of sleep, basically. And one of the biggest flags for me is, or one of the things I come across most often is sleep disordered breathing, which affects sleep quality, you can see this little one here. That is if your little one persistently sleeps like that with their head cranked back and their mouth open, plus or minus snoring, that indicates a sleep quality issue that needs to be addressed. And often little ones like this have ongoing sleep difficulty. So I guess the key take home from that is when sleep is difficult long term, so sometimes from birth, or it can be just, you know, you feel like you get on track and things fall apart every time there's a regression or, you know, a developmental leap, or you're on holidays or something changes and sleep falls apart consistently, then it's a bit of a mind frame switch that it's not, the sleep is not the problem. The sleep is a symptom indicating something else underneath, affecting sleep quality. Okay, thank you. So as I mentioned, I've put together a free ebook for you guys. You can find it at my website here. You can also follow me on Instagram, where I post lots of tips and advice and hints along the way. I do also offer free 15-minute consultations. So if you would like to arrange one of those or a consultation, you can email me at info@soundasleepbaby.com.au, or you can DM me on Insta. And I also offer a whole range of phone and home consultations should you have any ongoing problems with your little one's sleep. So if you have any, if you need any help, please get in touch. Thank you.